So when we talk about the ego, we're actually talking about something that is very, very real. We're not talking about nonsense. The ego is the devil. It's the individual pieces of the devil. The soul is parts of God, the ego is parts of the devil. So obviously that's already has a bad connotation. You can already start to see that it's a bad thing, the ego. Now the ego is part of the duality, right? There's the godly soul, there's the animal soul, aka there is the spiritual soul, and there is the um like the okay, so there's a spiritual soul and there is the dark side of the person. So let's get into more detailed explanation of what is the ego really. The ego, simply put, is the capability for a person to do evil. First of all, it's the thing in you, the spiritual spark in you that allows you to do what God would not have you do. And it's also it's the capability for doing evil. It's the capability to think up to do evil. And it's also the capacity to enjoy the fruit of one's evil and selfish actions. So it's the capability of doing evil, and it's the capacity to enjoy from a very perverted way the benefit of eating from that evil tree, of doing that evil action. So you already see that it's a very selfish and bad thing. If you didn't have the ego, you wouldn't have a capacity to do evil, and you wouldn't have the capability to do evil or think it up, and you wouldn't have the capacity to enjoy, the fruits of your evil works. But God allowed us to have free will. Free will is, the Creator gave us the ability to choose the right option or the wrong option in everyday life. Every single moment of the day, you have two options. You can do what's okay, what's not okay. And the ego is simply the part of the being that allows us to take the not okay option. In Jewish scriptures, it's referred to as the Yetzer Hara. The ego has been called a lot of things in a lot of scriptures. Some call it, the devil, the Satan, however you want to word that. But the story remains the same. Now, the ego is meant to be tamed, cause it to submit to the soul, to the godly soul. This is essentially the entire aim of life. It's to cause the ego to be in submission. That's the direction of life. That's the aim of life. It's to tame the ego and make the ego essentially your slave. The ego, that's right, the ego can be turned into a slave for your own spiritual best benefit. Now, the ego being the second half of your spiritual being, it's your animal soul, or it's your ungodly soul. So when the godly soul slowly attacks the ego and harasses the ego through doing good deeds or lack of bad deeds, the ego starts submitting and weakening until the godly soul, when you are officially in the positives, has taken over the domain of the ego, and the ego is now submitting to the positive godly soul and using it as a benefit. So yes, the ego is not only here to destroy others around you and to do wrong, rather, unholiness. It's also actually there to make you ruined. It's there to ruin you as well. Not just not just to do unholiness around you. Therefore, like I said already in this video several times, the aim of life is to harass the ego. Because even when it's completely tamed and in submission to the godly soul, you're still harassing it. It's still always there. It's an eternal spiritual, vessel, just like the godly soul. So, doing good actions and not doing bad actions harasses the ego and gets it tamed, like a dog on a leash, you could say.